Alright, here we are again. Cold War Beta just ended. Let's talk about it. Things I liked, things I didn't like. Let's go. Alright, we'll start off. Good things. Things that I liked. When I played the alpha, I felt like it was a very rough and clunky experience. Like, the controls weren't all quite there. The animations didn't quite blend together very well. That was a lot better in the beta. Gameplay-wise, it ran very well. Felt like a standard Call of Duty game. Didn't feel like I was walking through mud or anything. I figured that was just an alpha thing, but now we know for sure that it was. They gave us a bunch of new options in the settings menu. There were things like changing your FOV on consoles, changing the dead zone on your controller, both of which are firsts for Call of Duty. But my personal favorite options were turning the hit markers on and off, and the various HUD options they had, like player health bars and names, stuff like that. Other games have been doing customizable HUDs. I'm glad to see Call of Duty finally do it. I kind of hope they go back and add this to older games. I would love to be able to adjust the HUD in other games and turn off my hit markers, but at the very least, we've got it now. They finally did it. Thankfully, they reduced the sounds of the beeping when you call in a spy plane. It was much better in the alpha. It was very loud, very in your ear. It felt like that's all I was listening to. Now I hardly even notice it. I also like how in the gunsmith, you can see all the attachments on a gun, even the locked ones. They didn't do this in Modern Warfare. They hid them all. They even hid certain categories of attachments if you didn't unlock any from there yet. I hated that. I like knowing what level you're going to unlock attachments now instead of having it all hidden from you. Overall, a much better experience in the alpha, and I was very pleasantly surprised by some of the things they added. But now let's get into some of the things that I wasn't so fond of in the beta. Some of which were issues that I still had in the alpha that still have yet to be adjusted or looked at or anything. Now to start, in the alpha, a lot of things seem to have trouble loading, especially like in the creator class. That seems to be a lot better now. I didn't notice it as much. When I was playing on a regular PlayStation 4, loading into matches was a little rough. I feel like the loading screen would stay, but you'd have your HUD and you'd be able to pick your class. You just wouldn't actually be in the game until maybe 10-15 seconds late. I also had this one weird issue when I was playing, I think on PC. It was a match on Cartel. Everything was invisible. The map wasn't there. I could see through walls. I don't know why this happened. I don't know if I would have been able to shoot through walls and kill people unfairly. It did eventually sort itself out in the match, which is good, but ideally by the full release, we won't see things like that anymore. The new operator system. In the alpha, I couldn't figure it out. In the beta, I got it down. I didn't like how it worked. See, this is the first game in years that we have multiple factions, but when you pick your operator, it's the same on every faction, which means you can play as Frank Woods and see an ally Frank Woods, and then get shot by another Frank Woods. And it's weird. And I feel like there's a lot of times where I have to kind of do a double take when I see a guy, because I can't trust if the character they're playing as is on my team or the other team. And I suggested this in my alpha video. I think they should just list out all the factions right there under the operator tab, and let you pick an operator for each faction. But I feel like if they are going to do that, they're going to need a lot more operators, because they didn't have very many to split between all these different factions. At least 4, I think, were in the game so far. But yeah, Hopefully they change that. Hopefully they let certain operators only be on certain factions. I assume this was kind of like a stress test for the operators to make sure there weren't any visual bugs or glitches that could be caused with them, stuff like that. And I know it's like a thing in this game, double agents and who's on which side and all that. But I know for certain that Frank Woods would not be fighting for the cartel against the CIA on the Menendez estate. But anyway, I think it should be changed. This is a minor detail, but the Sigma 2 rocket launcher, what was up with that reload animation? You fire a rocket, and then you kind of pull the thing down, and then it sits there, and then you pull it back up with a new rocket, and there's absolutely no movement. You know, maybe it's like a case where, like, in real life this rocket launcher couldn't be reloaded on the field or something, so they kind of had to fake it. But why not just, like, put it off screen instead of just having it sit in my view and not move at all and expect me to believe another rocket went in there? Like, if they can make a reload animation for it, great. If not, I'd say just pull it off the screen. I don't need to see it sit still. And on the topic of reload animations, I can't say this is bad, but I thought some of them were weird. Some of them were perfectly fine and natural, but I thought others just felt a little clunky. Like the XM4, it looks like the guy has to shove that magazine in with a lot of force. You don't have to be that strong to put a magazine into a gun, right? In combined arms, the turrets, still pretty overpowered, very accurate, very high damage, very long range. They should be good against vehicles, but they shouldn't be that good against other people. And speaking of easy to use weapons, sniper rifles. I struggled with the sniper rifles at first in this game, and I was like, ooh, they made them difficult to use, ooh. And then, I watched some commentaries, I watched some reviews, and people said they felt like hit scan weapons. So I treated it like a hit scan weapon, and I was suddenly a lot better at sniping. So yeah, they are pretty easy to use. And on top of that, the glare that you're supposed to see on the scope, in their patch notes for the beta, they said that they increased this or something, but I feel like it only ever worked half the time. Most of the time I felt like I would be walking, and then I'd be dead because there was a sniper somewhere, and I couldn't see him. I felt like there was a lot of grenade spam in this game, especially in the objective modes, and I believe that this is because the throwing distance for the grenades was really far. Like, I couldn't tell you how many times I watched a kill cam where a guy on one side of the map threw his grenade all the way across and killed me with it. I don't think you should be able to do that. Like, if they want to let you throw grenades that far, I feel like it should be a perk or something. But to just be able to yeet the thing across the map by default is a little too much, I'd say. When it came to the gunsmith, compared to Modern Warfare, this version felt very bare bones. I spent a lot of time in the gunsmith in Modern Warfare because I just had a lot of fun with it, building these weapons and making all the secret weapons. But in Cold War, it doesn't feel so much like I'm building weapons. It feels like I'm just throwing attachments onto them. And I don't know if this is because, like, they just don't feel as meaningful of decisions, or they don't look as cool, or if it's simply just because all the attachment slots are on the left side instead of being all around the gun in their corresponding spots. But there was just something about it that didn't feel quite as satisfying. I almost didn't want to put attachments on my guns. It just, I don't know. I don't know. I also wasn't too fond of how there were a lot more attachments, it felt like, that didn't have any penalties that came along with them. In Modern Warfare, if you wanted to bump up one stat of your weapon, you had to reduce another. And even though you had 5 free attachment spots on your weapon, there was a reason to not use all of them, or to even just use your base weapon. But in Cold War, it feels like there's enough attachments that just have a boost to them, to your stats, that it feels like you might as well just put them on anyway. And one last thing about the attachments. Why did some of them look so goofy? They weren't all that bad, but like it was mostly one on the M16. I don't remember the name of the attachment. I couldn't tell you, but it looked like the triangular barrel that like the classic Black Ops 1 and 2 M16 had, but it was like half the length. And it was all stubby. Like why wasn't there like a normal sized version of that barrel? And like, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that somewhere that has existed on an M16. Like back in World War II, there were some weapons that I thought were kind of goofy, but then I looked into it and it turns out they were based on something real, so maybe this is the same thing. But it just looks so silly with that barrel on it. It looks like a little guy, a little stubby boy. And finally, the last thing about this beta that I was not fond of at all was the skill-based matchmaking. We can't confirm or deny that it was really there, but I had one day where my first match, I went 20-4, I had a 12 kill streak. The other team was walking on my proximity mines all the time, and my team won the game mode by a lot. I don't remember which one it was either hardpoint or domination. It was just a really easy match that went really well for me. And then it felt like every other game afterwards, I was getting spawn trapped, there were snipers that killed me instantly, my team could not play the objective, it felt really difficult. It felt like sometimes there was like connection issues, some of my bullets would disappear, and there were some very questionable deaths. So I assume that skill-based matchmaking can be in this game. I say can be because the last couple days, I had a much better time. It didn't feel quite as difficult to play the game. So I'm assuming it's something that they can turn on and off, and it feels like they turned it off for the last couple days. And for all I know, this is just because at the beginning, there was a much smaller player base, which were probably much bigger Call of Duty fans, if they're getting onto the beta and alpha that early. And then as it opened up to more people, more casual people started getting in, so maybe that's why it felt really difficult at first and got easier in the last couple days. And if that's the case, great, then I have no problem here. But if skill-based matchmaking is a thing and they choose to leave that on, it could ruin the game, no matter how good of a game it actually ends up being. No one's gonna have a good time if the only people you can play against are constantly pushing your limits. Like, it's one thing to have a couple matches like that, but if every match is gonna be like that, and I feel like I have to drench my controller in sweat to even get by, then I don't see myself playing this game all too often. So I don't know, I guess we'll just see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what they do. Only time will tell.